Alex and Connor were living proof that it was still happening. How were they going to escape this? Bobblewort, the troll, ran off and returned a moment later driving a small cart pulled by a frail donkey. Eghorn, the goblin, cut a rope above the net and the twins fell hard into the cart. They continued to fight against the restraints of the net, but it was no use. Eghorn climbed aboard the cart and sat next to Bobblewort. They both took the reins and whipped the donkey belligerently until the cart reached full speed. They traveled for the rest of the day. All the twins could see through the nets were treetops and skies zipping past them. Alex, what are we going to do? Connor asked, still fighting against the ropes of the net. I don't know, Alex said. She was trembling like a small dog. Alex managed to squirm her way to a seated position under the net to see where the troll and goblin were taking them. They were headed straight towards a line of boulders the size of mountains. Alex gasped. She recognized the rock formation from the map. What is it? What do you see? Connor asked her. They're taking us into the troll and goblin territory, Alex said, completely white-faced. I can see the boulders that surround it. They remembered Froggy telling them the boulders had been placed around the territory to keep the trolls and the goblins inside, but clearly as the cart squeezed through a crack between two of the boulders, the inhabitants had found ways around their imprisonment. The cart went through the boulders and into the kingdom, but there was nothing to see. There were no trees or buildings or life of any kind for miles around them. The land was only littered with piles of rubble and broken bits of stone. I don't understand, Connor said. Where do they live? This looks like a medieval junkyard, Alex said. The cart went through a gigantic hole in the ground and traveled down deep into the earth. It was pitch black, and the twins could barely see their hands in front of their faces. The smell of mildew and decay was horrible. The whole kingdom must be underground, Alex said. After descending in the dark for quite a distance, they saw tiny lights ahead of them. They came from lanterns scattered around a group of humans digging tunnels. What are people doing here? Connor asked, and then saw the trolls and goblins behind them. Faster, the trolls and goblins demanded, whipping the humans. Alex had to cover her eyes at the sight of it. They must be slaves. Oh, Connor, this is horrible. This is so horrible, she said. Connor hugged his sister, and she cried into his shoulder. It's okay, Alex. We'll find a way out of this, Connor said. But even he was scared. There were hundreds of huts and small homes stacked on top of one another all around them. It was an enormous underground world. This place must be like one giant ant colony, Connor said. The cart moved through a stone arch with large statues, one of a goblin and one of a troll, on either side of it. They were frightening with harsh features, and they were anything but welcoming. A sign carved into the arch read, "Be troll, be goblin, or be afraid." Most people just had to have welcome mats, Connor said. Past the arch was a long tunnel constructed of stones. The cart traveled through the arch, and a light could be seen at the end of the tunnel. There was so much noise coming from the end of the tunnel, a combination of high-pitched laughter, rumbling conversation, and loud clinking. The twins were soon driven into a massive common room with hundreds of goblins and trolls spread everywhere on numerous levels. Some were even hanging from a chandelier. Everything was made of stone. They ate and drank from stone plates and goblets and sat on stone chairs at stone tables. They were served by other enslaved men and women. Each troll and goblin behaved in a more vulgar way than the last. In the center of the chaos, on a platform overlooking the room, were two thrones. The Troll King sat in one, and the Goblin King sat in the other. A crown made of rock was on display directly between them. just above their heads, demonstrating that they have equally shared the power over this kingdom. They watched over their citizens with crude smirks, enjoying the festivities around them. As the cart went through the room, many of the trolls and goblins hooted and hollered at the twins. Some threw bits of food at them. Alex and Connor held on to each other tighter than ever, both trembling with fear. The goblins and trolls were all grotesque and dreadful. They had warts and sharp teeth and horrible hygiene. They were the type of monsters Alex and Connor used to have nightmares about when they were younger. Sitting on the king's platform was a little troll girl, about the twins' age. She had a round face with a small snout, and her hair was worn in pigtails just below tiny horns. She was sitting with her head resting on her hands and seemed bored and lonely. She didn't appear at all interested in the activities around her. She looked up as the twins passed her and gasped when she saw Connor. This took him by surprise. "What is she looking at?" Connor asked. "Do you think she wants to eat me or something?" The cart turned a corner and descended down another long tunnel. They were so deep underground that they wondered if they would ever make it back to the surface. The cart entered a small and dim dungeon with a row of cells in it. Other slaves were imprisoned inside the cells, men, women, children, and elderly alike. They all looked exhausted and were ghostly pale. They were all silent and cowered at the sight of Eghorn and Bobblewort steering the cart into the room. Eghorn and Bobblewort cut the net around Alex and Connor, yanked the bags out of their hands, and aggressively forced them inside a cell. "Get in there," Eghorn said, and slammed the cell door shut behind them.